and I appreciate the introduction by Carrie. I'm very technically focused with respect to the industry, but I do have a background in civil and environmental engineering. So much of the environmental permitting that goes into this work and any other earth disturbance work related to Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia is kind of where my background lies. I spent almost 8 years with civil environmental consultants and a couple of other consulting firms before joining the coalition in 2012. So I've been here for a little over 10 years, and it's been kind of a wild ride. So just a little bit about us real quick, and I don't want to make this a commercial, but we do have 120 very active and robust members of the MSC. Our membership represents more than 95% of the natural gas being produced in Pennsylvania. We have upstream, midstream, and pipeline and downstream members, as well as a very vibrant supply chain membership that includes engineering firms, law firms, environmental firms, drilling service companies, survey firms. We even have a couple of unions in the PA pipe trades and the boilermakers that are members of ours. And it's very, very diverse. And what our end goal is to advance the opportunity here in Appalachia and to advocate for this industry to continue to operate in a common sense and environmentally responsible way by addressing any kind of stakeholder issues that our members have and helping to advance each one of the end goals of our members while being respectful of obviously the environment and the places where we live and work and play as well. We're structured in this fashion. Again, a very robust set of committees that rolls up through our advocacy committee. But all of the committees that you see here on this slide are very substantively focused on issues that get very much into the weeds, and we rely very heavily on our members to dive into these specific issues, especially issues as they come up. Air quality obviously is an up and coming committee where we are very focused on capturing emissions, preventing emissions from getting outward, preventing obviously methane from emitting, obviously methane being the product of our natural gas companies. So we have experts that come in. We work very well with the Department of Environmental Protection, and we are obviously very directed towards achieving different ways of getting fact-based information across. They could be fact sheets, best practices, recommended practices, and then obviously, through our blog and other social media accounts, we're trying to get that messaging out there to really get the right information and fact-based information out there. So this is where our members are very heavily engaged with us. All these committees are led by members, and they're elected on a yearly basis by our board. They nominate themselves, so it provides a very good opportunity for folks to showcase their expertise as a leader within the organization. Again, the value for membership, just quickly, comes from the engagement within our committees, establishing and creating professional business development opportunities, giving presentations to our committee, using us as MSC staff to help make connections. One of the value adds of being a member is helping us make helping you make introductions to our members so that you can create your own professional development and obtain business within the industry, which is really one of the main goals of joining the industry. Of course, the MSC, of course, is to get a footprint of work within the basin, and then obviously that engagement with regulatory officials and elected officials to help advance the industry. Let's move away from the organization and talk about the update of the industry and what we're seeing here in Pennsylvania right now. Certainly, you guys have all seen this slide before. This is the footprint of both the Marcellus and the Utica formation throughout the tri-state area. It's something that the Utica continuing to be explored in more depth, both physically and literally, as well as the Marcellus formation continuing to be developed within the tri-state area, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. We at the MSC do partner very nicely with our sister organizations, UGA and West Virginia Go. We coordinate on federal issues. We've worked together on our Shale Insight Conference. We act as one unit at times in many of these issues that don't that don't respect, I guess, the state borders, if you will. So certainly there's a great partnership there. Pennsylvania is just a world-class player in shale gas production. We are the #2 state in natural gas production, with over 10,700 producing wells. Just in 2021, and again, large numbers are really hard to get your head wrapped around, but 7.5 trillion cubic feet of natural gas was extracted from the formation, the Marcellus and Utica formations in Pennsylvania in 2021, which is roughly 20.5% of the total U.S. natural gas production. So a tremendous amount of gas that's right here underneath our feet, with over half of the counties in Pennsylvania having at least one producing unconventional well. All said, we have almost 12,400 unconventional wells that have been drilled or spud in Pennsylvania. As you see, again, over 10,700 unconventional wells are producing. The reason that there is a difference in those numbers, you've got a substantial amount of unconventional wells that have been drilled that are waiting on infrastructure, waiting on pipeline, waiting for ways to get to market. So these are, this is why we stress that pipelines and infrastructure are very much needed to get gas to market, to bring the price of energy down, and to really truly realize the opportunity here in Pennsylvania. Certainly with pipelines, you have a lot of permitting that goes into them, a lot of time delays. And then in some cases, you have states that have turned away the opportunity to take gas from Pennsylvania. And I'm specifically talking about New York right now, to cross state lines with pipelines so that the New England states can realize the opportunity of cheap, affordable, and clean natural gas. So we're hopeful that over time, and with everything going on, that this opportunity is able to be realized via the infrastructure that needs to be developed. Almost 4,000 unconventional well pads. That's significant because multiple wells on a pad is certainly something that is environmentally beneficial. You don't have to build as many pads. There are companies that have drilled 20 to 24 wells on one pad, which limits the amount of earth disturbance, and about 20 billion cubic feet a day coming out of Pennsylvania. The unconventional well activity has slanted down over the last several years, but that's not really indicative of the activity. Again, longer laterals, higher performing wells. You don't need as many wells drilled. You don't need as many permits drilled, but certainly it's an indication of the activity, but really not indicative of the performance in Pennsylvania. When you look at pricing is interesting. And again, I just briefly touched on this because traditionally Pennsylvania, because of the lack of takeaway capacity, has been lower than the national average of natural gas. In 2008, natural gas in Pennsylvania before the Marcellus sold for $13 on average an MCF, and you can see in 2012 the price was very low because of the influx of product across the country because of the advent of unconventional development and the lack of infrastructure to get gas to market. And so now as the market has kind of shifted, inflation has increased, the demand for the product has increased. You see those prices in 2022 have started to creep up, $7.26 at the national average, and then $5.65 here in Pennsylvania. Still very much lower than what it was in 2008. So there is a huge cost savings for consumers, which I'll touch on in a moment, for heating your home and the other uses of natural gas that we have. When you look at production in Pennsylvania has increased substantially. In 2011, we were at 1 trillion cubic feet for that year. Every year since 2011, it has increased. And you can see even from 2020 to 2011, through the heat of the pandemic, we were increasing upwards of 7.5 trillion cubic feet. The opportunity is still very real. Gas is getting to market, infrastructure is getting built. So it is still fueling the nation, and we anticipate that these numbers will continue to climb as infrastructure is developed and more wells are drilled. Susquehanna County, ironically enough, here is the largest producer when you look at the county borders of natural gas here in the play in Pennsylvania, with almost 21.5% of the Pennsylvania production, and the second most producing well, second only to Washington County. Susquehanna County, as you all know, in the north central part of the state here, has some of the most pure natural gas around of any reservoir in the United States. It's so pure that in some cases you could plug it right into your house, and very little needs to be done to make it market ready, versus other counties, obviously, that have liquids associated with them that you strip off and use for other uses. Washington County, Greene County obviously has that liquids rich part of the natural gas, propane, ethane, isobutane, and products obviously that are used for other uses. Growing market demand, and this is a kind of a little bit of a hard graph to read, but I'll kind of show what it says here. In 2008, the annual consumption of natural gas was at around 20 trillion cubic feet for the entire country. You can now see that the United States consumes about 36.2 trillion cubic feet annually. In 2008, Pennsylvania was only producing, again, pre-Marcellus, 200 billion cubic feet. And in 2020, as you can see here, we're at 7.1 trillion cubic feet. And obviously with 2021 numbers being in, it's a little bit higher, closer to 7.5 trillion. So the increase is substantial. And obviously this is where we get the number that Pennsylvania is producing about 20.5%, 20.5% of the country's natural gas needs. Pennsylvania is also powering the Northeast. Pennsylvania is the largest net exporter of electricity in the United States. You can see by this fancy graph here that many states around us are importers of electricity. Virginia, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, even all the way up to Massachusetts, they're importing electricity. We are exporting electricity, and that is because of the advent of natural gas-fired power plants with a cheap, abundant, and clean air product being utilized. Many of the coal-fired power plants that were here in Pennsylvania have switched over to cheaper and cleaner natural gas. Some of them are still cogen, but many of them are switching over to natural gas only, which has cleaned the air and provided cheaper electricity for those in Pennsylvania. But this is significant. So over a third of the electricity that Pennsylvania power plants produce is exported into other states. Getting gas to market, again, it's a critical piece. We're trying to get pipeline in the ground. Pipeline is a very difficult piece of real estate right now. They are challenged by environmental groups. Permit times are very unpredictable. But it is the safest way to get natural gas to market versus trucks and trains. So there are many pipeline projects that are ongoing. Many are stalled. Many face political pushback and environmental group pushback. We certainly are using our members and our advocacy efforts to lobby for these pipelines, because it provides additional takeaway capacity for our members here in Pennsylvania, and provides a cheaper source of energy and heat in a time right now where it's so desperately needed with respect to energy costs. So we obviously track a lot of these pipeline projects, the proposed projects. We offer support letters to our members that are developing these projects. And we do everything that we can to be able to see these projects through and get them into the ground. Our severance tax, or our impact fee, as some know it, is very important and provides communities money locally for where the impacts or the drilling is occurring. This is something that we very much like to tout very heavily in the total impact fee revenues to date. inclusive of this past year, is 2.26 billion, a tremendous amount of money. And year over year, it has fluctuated, but it's only fluctuated because of the price of natural gas. And that's really what the basis of the money that's collected by the PUC. One important part to note, and one difference that I like to point out, with respect to a straight up severance tax that other states have, severance taxes are based on the natural gas that is sold or that is provided by the company out of the well. In Pennsylvania, the impact fee or the impact tax is dispersed based on wells that are drilled. So in theory, you could be paying an impact tax on a well that's not producing, or you're not realizing revenue on. So that's significant, because you saw in the previous slide there were roughly 1,500 wells that were waiting on pipeline. Companies are paying an impact tax on those wells where they're not realizing revenue. The other point to state and to emphasize is that a traditional severance tax, all of the money is going to the state government and the state coffers. I believe that the impact fee or the impact tax that Pennsylvania has is something that is good, because the majority, 60% of the money, goes locally to municipalities, to counties, for specific projects and uses, and not necessarily not all to the state level government to be doled out in a fashion that is up to the state government. So significant amount of money for projects. We track that. If you look at another way of seeing where the money goes, again, $109 million in 2020 went to local government, and that is the chunk. Obviously, state environmental and state agency oversight are the other buckets, and then county parks and bridges. There's a significant amount of money that goes there. Growing greener, some of those state programs that the governor touts on environmental cleanups, environmental restorations, that's made possible in part by the impact fee monies. Again, I touched on this previously, but there has been, and I know you may not see it in your bills sometimes, your utility bills, but if you just look at the actual cost of the raw product, the raw material, the raw natural gas, and not the service fee and the other things that utility companies charge, there has been a huge reduction in Pennsylvania locally on natural gas cost, and a huge consumer savings. And this is what we like to tout as a result of the Marcellus, and they're significant. And you can see the price rate for MCF individually from these utility companies. $13.16 an MCF in 2008 to $4.02 in 2021. Significant savings that are being realized by Pennsylvanians versus up in New England or New York or other areas that either have to import natural gas, or they have to utilize heating oil or other sources of heat for electricity. Just another graph showing the reductions, from 2008 all the way to 2020. And another way to look at it too is the price per kilowatt hour in Pennsylvania, $10.11. And again, this is based on 2018 U.S. Chamber of Commerce Global Energy Institute versus the New England states, $18, $18.30, $18.46. So New England consumers are paying more than 81% than Pennsylvania consumers for their electricity in 2018. Significant numbers when you're on a tight budget. Again, protecting the environment is certainly something that's critical to our business. We are very much under a microscope by the Pennsylvania DEP, and that's fine, because we believe we perform very well. You can see the number of inspections conducted by the Pennsylvania DEP are significant. Just in 2021, we had close to 19,000 unconventional inspections and around 17,500 conventional inspections. So a significant amount of oversight. We like to look at it this way: 18,838 inspections, In 2021, when you look at the number of violations or notices of violations that are issued by department inspectors, that equates into a 96.4% compliance rate. So a very low number top of the equation, a very big number in oversight on the bottom, and our compliance rate, I believe, is for the activity, the level of activity in Pennsylvania and the nature of our activity, I think is second to none if you compare it to other activities that disturb earth, that are industrial in the Commonwealth. And I honestly, continue to applaud the level of oversight the department provides on this industry so that we can paint this picture and show how well companies like Coterra and others are performing in this basin. So we track these numbers. The violations that are issued by the department, why we work on those inside of our committees and find ways that we can improve. The leading violation over time since 2017 has been related to spills, small spills on pads. And we try to find ways to, educate our members on how to prevent those spills, how to prevent near misses and accidents, how to utilize secondary containment. There's an educational moment, I think, that's very important for our members to realize. But again, the performance is very high. We certainly won't be satisfied until this number is 100%. Again, enhancing air quality quickly. I've got a couple more slides left. Again, switch over from coal to natural gas in power gen. You're going to see air quality benefits, and again, they're undeniable. And again, this is coming directly from the Pennsylvania electric power generation sector. VOCs are down 40% since 2005. NOx is down 81%. SOx, obviously affiliated with the burning of coal, down 93%, and CO2 emissions are down 41%. Overall, in Pennsylvania, greenhouse gas emissions are down to 1991 levels in Pennsylvania because of the switchover from coal to natural gas, improving air quality and improving the environment. Another way to look at this is that discussion of methane intensity. Methane intensity is a ratio of gas produced versus emissions reported. And in the US, especially in Pennsylvania, we have a very stringent way of reporting emissions to the department using very conservative calculations, both at the DEP and the EPA level. So if you look at the methane intensity, again, this indicates countries that are releasing methane into the atmosphere versus, the lower number here is better, the larger number here is worse, and you can see the US is the lowest. Looking at it in another way, basin specific here in the United States, in Appalachia, and I think it's because of a lot of the innovations that have been made in Appalachia in our industry, but also the regulations safeguarding our environment that have been applied. Appalachia has the lowest methane intensity out of the top 9 hydrocarbon producing basins in the United States. And that's something that we tout and we're very obviously proud of. I really appreciate your time today. Did buzz through those rather quickly, but I wanted to leave time for questions here at the end. We enjoy our partnership with the Women's Energy Network. We've had them participate with us in our Shale Insight Conference. And again, I very much appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. And I'm here if you need anything afterwards. If you have questions, if you just want to reach out and talk, I'm always open to doing that. So, Carrie, really appreciate you introducing me. And it looks like we may have some questions there.
Yes, thank you very much, Loren. That was a very informative presentation. So we do have 5 questions submitted. I'll go through them and just got another one. And just a reminder, there's a widget down there. If you have any questions, just type them in and we'll address them. And we have a half an hour left, so it's quite a bit of time. So our first question is, as industry advocates and supporters, how can we help make progress in pipeline projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I always look at it locally. I serve in a number of different capacities at Cecil Township where I live. I was on the Planning Commission. I was on the Zoning Hearing Board. I'm on the Zoning Hearing Board now. So I think if there's a way that you can advocate locally for that, pipelines are the safest way to transport these products, when there are conditional use hearings, when there are permits that are being presented, whenever I'm at the township meetings, there are a lot of people, that vocal minority, that are against fossil fuels altogether. I think utilizing materials that the MSC has out on our website, fact sheets, to set the record straight on why they're important and why they're safe, I think is the best way a person, anybody, could help advocate for pipeline projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very informative for myself as well. So, all right, our next question is, what can we expect to see from drilling and production activity in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it all really hinges on infrastructure development and takeaway capacity. As the price of gas has increased and natural gas has increased, we've seen an uptick in activity just over the last few months. I think you can expect that to continue because there's a market need and a demand for abundant, low-priced energy, and I think at the end of the day, we want to be less dependent on foreign countries for our energy needs, and that's as political as I'll get. I think overall you're going to see an increase. It doesn't matter who's in the office, what political party has control. There's no getting around that natural gas and the reserves that we have in the United States, responsibly sourced and developed, is really a game changer from us. And I think that production and activity will increase. It may not increase by leaps and bounds. It'll be slow in the beginning, but it will definitely increase. And these wells that are being drilled, especially in Pennsylvania, the decline curves are very slight. I mean, some of these wells are producing at such high rates that they'll be around for 50, 100 years. So going back to wells or to well pads, there may be some companies that do that, but I think the producing wells that we have on right now will be producing for a long time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The next question is, can you give some specific examples of the kind of community projects the impact fees fund?
Sure, that's a great question. In Washington County, where I live, they were drilling under a state a county park, I guess I should say, and the royalties / the impact fee, those monies were used to improve the park, add acreage to the park, and provide the municipality and the county funds to do that. In Cecil Township, closer to home for me, there are 12 producing wells in Cecil Township. Roughly, Cecil Township has realized at least $2 to $3 million over the life of the impact fee. They've used that for a number of different things. Rehabilitation of parks, purchasing of emergency vehicles. Within the Act, which is Act 13, that came into effect in 2012, there's a list of, I think it's 20 different things that communities can do with the impact fee funds. Certainly, they have the ability to stick it in their rainy day fund. Some communities elect to do that, but other communities have been very active in using that money for sewer projects, emergency vehicles, emergency management systems. All those activities and what the communities spend the money on is readily available at the PUC's website. If you're ever interested and bored and want to go look at what your community is using the impact fee money for.
All right, thank you very much. Next question is, I don't think my company is a member of the MSC. How can we get involved?
Yeah, I love that question. First, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk in depth about membership. We'd love to have you as a member. In addition, to membership, there are other ways to get involved if you're not able to become a member. We have our Shale Insight Conference coming up September 27th through the 29th. It'll be up in Erie. You can go to shaleinsight.com. The WEN Pittsburgh group will have a booth there, so they'll be represented, and anybody is welcome to attend. It's a great experience to meet leaders in the industry. We're almost sold out of booth space. We're going to kick off our program next week on our website. There's that opportunity. If you're into research and development, and I know this is a little bit of a niche, but we do have a research collaborative as part of the MSC that's open to non-members. We work with universities, NETL, other R&D minded organizations to look at encouraging innovation and advancement in technology within the industry. So there's that. There's a couple opportunities. If you're not able to be a member, certainly we would love for you to become a member. Please definitely reach out, whoever asked that question.
All right, thank you. And in that vein, can an individual become a member of the MSC, or is it only for corporate partners?
So yeah, it's a corporate membership, but what we did in July of 2020 is we have different levels of membership. The companies that have direct capital at risk, the operators, Range Resources, Coterra, others, they're at a board level of membership. For those companies that are in the supply chain, engineering firms, unions, any of those other companies that support the industry with services, we have a 3 tiers of membership, and they go from small to large companies. It's based on total employee headcount. So right now we have 12 companies that are less than 5, that have less than 5 employees that are members of the coalition. We made that change in July of 2020 during the pandemic because we wanted to reduce our membership dues, which was obvious, so that people would stay with us. And then 2, we wanted to get some of the smaller companies with us because they have expertise that's very valuable to us. So right now we have 12 companies that are at that lower level of membership with respect to membership dues.
All right, thank you. And I know for myself, I manage a combined cycle power plant, and I'm not sure. So obviously we use a lot of natural gas. So I'm not sure if my company is a member or not. So I'd like to look into that more. So
Love to talk to you, Carrie.
All right, and the last question I have so far, unless someone else submits another one, is what type of tactics, tools, or protocols do producers utilize to safeguard the environment?
That's a great question. And I guess the first and foremost, they utilize really great service companies to help them. I look at the environmental firms that we have that are members. I look at some of the service providers that we have. These are the companies that are developing and install the necessary secondary containment, the liner systems, the remote systems, the systems that are in place that are constructed to prevent releases into the environment. Companies that have technologies that are downhole to sense any kind of minute casing, any casing that's compromised, in some fashion. They're able to remotely detect it, and then they're able to remotely go down and fix it. So these operators, I think their use of and engagement of companies that are in the business of protecting the environment, I think is the best thing that they do. The other thing that we do, and it's up on our website, is we develop recommended practices. And I think we have 12 or 13 of them. Our recommended practices that we have publicly available on our website, shameless plug, are all things that go above and beyond the current regulations that are required by either at the state level or at the federal level. And so when we develop these recommended practices, these companies are promoting and promising to follow them. And I think that's something that they pride themselves on from a PR perspective. But I think all this being said, the companies that are utilized, the innovative technologies like secondary containment, and other different types of erosion and sedimentation control that's put around the perimeter of the site. All of these being used in concert with each other, I think helps get us to those numbers that I showed with the 96% compliance rate, the 97% compliance rate. You have DEP inspectors coming out, with only 10,000 or 12,000 drilled wells in the Commonwealth and 20,000 inspections. When they're coming out so frequently, they're looking for things to write you up on. And when they can't find things, they generally say that you guys are doing a great job. And I think it's really something good to be said about the operators that are here, like Coterra and Natalie and her team, that are doing good work, but they're also engaging the right local environmental firms to help protect them. So I think they think long and hard about it. It takes you a good year to get an earth disturbance permit for a new unconventional well pad in the state of Pennsylvania. You've got professional engineers, geologists, surveyors, all sealing the package before it's approved. And then it's under a microscope, as I said before. So I don't think that and again, I'm biased, I don't think that any other basin is under the same level of scrutiny than we are here in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, and Appalachia.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And we have just more of a comment that energy companies seem to go above and beyond the impact fee by contributing additional funds throughout the community for healthcare, education, and food insecurity. And do you have any?
That's absolutely true. I look at our community down in Washington County. I look how much Range Resources does for the community. Up in the Northeast, Natalie's company, Coterra, formerly Cabot. They do a bunch. They give money to volunteer fire departments. They give money to junior achievement. They provide so many different things. The 10,000 turkeys that we have in Washington County to get hot meals and food for those that can't afford them at Thanksgiving. These are great programs that they've gone above and beyond to develop, and I appreciate that comment for sure, because I definitely think it's something that goes unnoticed at times. And they don't want to take credit for it either. They'll put a blast on their social media page, but it's something that they are truly going above and beyond. And during the heat of the pandemic, these are the companies that were donating, medical equipment or purchasing medical equipment, buying meals for first responders and hospital workers, and making all kinds of donations when people were out of work and the hospitals were flooded with patients.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. We have another question. Why do you feel that the other areas of play are not held to the same standards as the Northeast?
It's a good question. I've always been a firm believer that states are more in a position to regulate and govern industries within their boundaries, not the federal government, but that's my own personal view. I think the state of Pennsylvania, the partnership the state of Pennsylvania had with the industry when we were first getting started in 2008 and 9, I think really worked well. There was really nothing to govern unconventional development back then, and many meetings. Certainly, we didn't get everything that we wanted. They didn't get everything that they wanted. But the monitoring programs that have been put in place have been successful to show that we're not having an impact with the current regulatory framework. I can't speak to other states, and I know that Colorado is probably a state that's like Pennsylvania with the regulatory restrictions that they have. I should say protections that they have. But I also look at it is we need here in Appalachia different types of protections and strategies than other areas of the country because our topography is so different. We've got mountains here. We've got the infrastructure. The roads are very skinny. We've got a number of different state parks. There's so much difference in the lay of the land here in Appalachia versus Texas or Louisiana or states that have been traditionally industrially developed over time. But I can't really point to one thing. I think the EPA obviously sets the baseline of the way the industry should perform, but the states are able to work with industry to go above and beyond that. You're on mute, Carrie.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of being on camera. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, we really thank you for your very informative presentation. I certainly learned a lot, and I know you'll be sending this presentation out for anybody who would like a copy, and also this recording will go on to a YouTube channel. So we really appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Really enjoyed being here.
Great. Also, we do have an event tomorrow talking about community service. That's at the Central PA Food Bank. It's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can find out more about that at our WEN, the WEN Susquehanna Valley website, and you can register for it. I did it the last time. It was very, very, very rewarding. And if you have any interest in that, you can either just show up or register for that, and we would appreciate it. Again, we thank you for your attendance here, and again, Loren, for your very great presentation. So,
thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.